All right, we'll call the meeting to order. On behalf of the Planning Commission, I'd like to welcome our residents and viewers to this regular meeting of June 13, 2023. We have a fairly busy agenda tonight. We have 4 public hearings. Before we get into those public hearings, we have one housekeeping item. That would be the minutes from our regular meeting of May 9th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that. We have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. I mentioned we have 4 public hearings. We have an agenda. We're going to take it out of order a little bit. It's going to be very quick. We have one public hearing. It's 3.3 on the agenda. It's a conditional use permit for a grocery store within the B1 zoning district. The address is 705 A Street, and the applicant is a Mr. Haque. And what they're asking is that we just continue this until our July meeting. So here's our motion to continue this public hearing until our July 11th public meeting, regular meeting. Here's our motion.
I'll motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Call the roll, please.
Winchell.
Yes.
Roddy.
Yes.
Lado.
Yes.
McAfee.
Yes.
All right, with that, then we'll get back to the agenda. The second public hearing now would be amendment to a conditional use permit to allow for the expansion of a charter school within the B2 zoning district. The applicant is Great Oaks Academy. The address is 115 Elm Street. Tony, you're going to start this?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission members. As Chair Roddy had mentioned, this is an amendment to a conditional use permit to allow the expansion of a charter school at the property at 115 Elm Street. Great Oaks Academy is seeking this amendment. They were originally granted a conditional use permit January 11th of 2022 to establish the school within the former grocery store building located at 115 Elm Street. They have reapplied for a conditional use permit after denial of a similar application by the Planning Commission in April of this year. So not 2022, but 23. So apologize for that. Included in your packet and as shown up on the screen here are the projected enrollment and staff numbers for Great Oaks. So as you can see, by fiscal year 30-31, they do expect to be a K through 12 with an enrollment of 840 students and a total staff of 78. The subject property is owned by Farmington 115 LLC, which is Wellington Management Company. The property is Zone B2, downtown business, and schools are a conditional use within that zoning district. The expansion plans, as provided in your packet, basically comprise of 5 different things, and I'll try to quickly go through those. The first one is the interior renovation of the northernmost portion of the existing school building that has previously been occupied by ATBAT. This does include converting the space into 3 additional classrooms and a restroom. The second is the interior renovation of the existing strip center on the east side of the site. This renovation would largely consist of 8 middle school classrooms, a cafeteria, office space, science room, art room, and restrooms. And then the third is a building addition to the north side of the existing strip center. If you'll recall, with the previous application that we reviewed earlier this year, that addition was more off to the west of the existing strip center. With this proposal, it's more towards the north, so I just wanted to make that distinction. The building addition includes a lobby area, restroom, storage area, and a gymnasium that's about 5,264 square feet in size. The plan does call for a future construction of a 2-story high school that would be attached to the gymnasium addition. The high school would consist of 8 general classrooms, music room, special needs space, office, and larger vestibule and common space. The plan also calls for construction of a fire lane on the east side of the proposed building expansion. If the fire lane as shown does encroach or would encroach in a drainage and utility easement that currently contains both a sanitary sewer line and a water line. If approved, the condition of approval should be that an encroachment agreement must be executed to allow the fire lane within that drainage and utility easement. In the last Expansion area to discuss is number 5, which is the removal of portions of the existing parking lot to create a courtyard to the west of the proposed gymnasium addition, along with green space on the southern end of the existing strip center building, which is adjacent to Elm Street. Fencing is proposed along the western side and portions of the northern and southern sides of the proposed courtyard. If approved, the condition of approval should be that additional safety precautions, whether it be bollards, fencing, or some other precaution, be installed along the outside perimeter of the courtyard. So basically the entire courtyard outside of it. An updated plan must be submitted for staff approval. These are the proposed floor plans. So as you can see, the one on the furthest left is the gymnasium and what would be the future high school expansion addition. Again, it's more located towards the north of the building versus towards the west. The center portion of the floor plan here includes the existing strip center, showing you the 8 classrooms, cafeteria, science room, and the like. And then the one on the far right is the at-bat space with the 3 additional classrooms. Building elevation showing the proposed gymnasium. As far as the site plan and traffic circulation, as you can see, again, with this, the building addition has been moved more towards the north versus towards the east, towards the existing. As far as actual traffic circulation, what Great Oaks is proposing with this particular application is that middle school drop-off and pickup would utilize the Elm Street access. So come in, circle around, and then exit back out the Elm Street access. Elementary school drop-off and pickup would enter off of First Street and exit through the Elm Street access. So come in back behind the building, drop off in front of the main school area, and then exit out of the private access. Public and non-peak Great Oaks traffic will be able to come directly through the site from Elm Street. There is an existing access easement that will remain as part of this application. It basically extends from Elm Street all the way north and provides access to those businesses to the north. So, access to the site from First Street does not have such an access easement for general public. Staff is suggesting, if approved, a condition of approval should be that an access easement be prepared and executed for the access off of First Street. As far as off-street parking, as I previously mentioned, the property is Zone B2, and our parking regulations are exempt within this particular zoning district. The property currently has 229 off-street parking stalls within its boundary. If the plan is to be constructed as shown in your packet, the total parking stalls would be reduced to approximately 161 off-street stalls, which would still be sufficient to meet the requirements outlined in the code for the school use. The applicant did provide an updated traffic study as part of their application. The study does indicate that right turn lanes will be warranted by the year 2028 and 2029 based on enrollment projections. If approved, a condition of approval should be that westbound right turn lanes shall be constructed at the intersections of Elm Street and First Street, and Elm Street and the school's private entrance within 2 years of the CUP approval. As the commission is aware, there are 6 criteria for a conditional use permit. Staff does believe that the application as submitted does meet those 6 criteria. Therefore, the action that is requested this evening is to approve the amendment to the conditional use permit to allow the expansion of a school at the property located at 115 Elm Street, contingent upon the following. Number 1, the encroachment agreement must be executed to allow the construction of the fire lane within the city's drainage and utility easement. Number 2, additional safety precautions, i.e. bollards, fencing, etc., must be installed along the outside perimeter of the courtyard. An updated plan must be submitted to staff for approval. 3, an access easement must be prepared and executed for the site access to First Street. 4, westbound right turn lanes must be constructed at the intersections of Elm Street and First Street, and Elm Street and the school's private access within 2 years of the CUP approval. The turn lanes must meet county approval. 5, the submission and approval of all building and fire permits deemed necessary for the expansion. And lastly, number 6, sign permits shall be submitted and approved for any exterior signage to be placed on the buildings or site.
All right, thank you, Tony. With us tonight is a representative of the applicant, Great Oaks. Paul, do you have anything to add? Please.
I'm Paul McGlynn, the director of Great Oaks Academy.
My name is Cullen O'Neill. I'm a Great Oaks parent and chair of the expansion committee.
Colin will go first and address our plan, and we have a small and short presentation to make for you.
Do you want the document camera?
Or the site plan.
Either that or we can put this on the document camera.
Either one.
Let's try that. Zoom in.
Planning commissioners want to just walk through a presentation of the actions we've taken since the April meeting. Our primary goal was to address your concerns, as was communicated by you in the April meeting and in the findings of fact. That was really our focus, and to make improvements to the site plan, traffic flow, et cetera, to really make this application the best that it can be. And so plan for this here is to just sort of walk through those steps that we took, take a look at the site plan, the traffic flow, talk through our thoughts and how we prepared them, and then of course answer any questions that you have. So first we'll start with the site plan here. One of the findings of fact talked about sight lines to the post office and the adjacent building there to the north. Our previous application had our gymnasium right where that, essentially where the courtyard is, to the north of that, in the center of the property. Well, and the other thing too that you mentioned was the need for showing the full build out K through 12. And so we wanted to make sure we addressed that as well. And so we positioned both the gymnasium and the future high school to the north, as Mr. Whipple mentioned, to the north of that existing retail strip mall, which we will be converting to a middle school. We positioned it as far east, as we could, to maintain that central lane there through between the two buildings. There is an existing fire lane right there, but to get those buildings as far east as we could, we would need to build a new fire lane, as Mr. Whippler mentioned, and that's shown sort of in that dark band right there on the right side behind the gymnasium. The gymnasium, of course, would be 2 stories. The vestibule entry would be the south sort of portion of that, and the high school would wrap around the gymnasium, 2 stories matching the same height. The gymnasium would be built as a storm shelter per code, and it does have sufficient size for our 840 student enrollment. That is the maximum enrollment that we are planning for the school and for this site. We believe that's the maximum that we can do here, and that's our goal. That's been our intent all along, is 840 students. That's 3 sections of K through 8 and 2 classes, 3 classes of K through 8, 2 classes of 9 through 12. So that's how we address the position of the buildings. The courtyard, we wanted to maintain some green space there in the center to bring some aesthetic to the property, to have a place for students to gather. That would not be used for recreation. There will not be recess there with balls being kicked around. It would be used more for congregation, some outside classes, things like that. And of course, means of travel between the 2 buildings. We will be keeping that to a minimum from a safety standpoint. So the goal is to very much minimize elementary school, the youngest students coming across to the east, everything for the elementary school students is housed there with the elementary school. But of course, for just circulation, there may need to be some students crossing there from the older side, middle school, high school. And so on the west side of the courtyard there, we have 2 crosswalks during peak times, drop off in the morning, pick up in the afternoon. We will have crossing guards and making sure that we are doing that as safely as we possibly can. Student safety, of course, is paramount. As Mr. Whippler mentioned, we do show a fence, conventional safety fence wrapping around the west portion of that courtyard. And as Mr. Whippler mentioned, the city would like to see us continue with fencing or bollards to wrap around the full courtyard. We completely understand, and that is definitely something we can certainly do and would want to do to maintain safety there for anybody in that courtyard space from vehicular traffic coming into or out of the property. I think that is most of what I wanted to cover here for the site plan. The green space to the south of the retail strip mall is for aesthetics. We would not be having students in that area. That's just to, again, brighten up the site a little bit, bring some greenery in to that area. I think we'll switch. I can just switch right here. Switch the down.
Yeah, why don't you switch the
Yep, put that way. Pretty cool. It's like a reverse of what I'm doing. Okay. All right, at this point, I'm gonna have Kevin come on up here, Kevin Holm. So, Kevin, you wanna just introduce real quick?
My name's Kevin Holm. I'm with LHB. We're an architecture and engineering firm. Do quite a bit of K-12 and higher ed design. So we've been hired by Great Oaks to help them with their planning process and their approach. So the image that you see up on the screen right now is relative to the circulation patterns. You can see there's 2 different pathways or circular pieces. As Tony pointed out earlier, the middle school would be the easternmost, the small loop on the east side and the south side for parent pickup and drop off, and then the large loop that goes north on First and then loops back south is the elementary and the bus pathway. One of the reasons that we're looking at it from that approach is you always want your students to get out on the curb side so that they have safe access directly to the building and aren't crossing parent pickup and drop off and bus traffic and that type of thing. Paul's group has done an incredible job of training the staff and the parents in how to orderly enter and be dropped off as well as picked up. So.
To that end, I hope you were able to have a chance to look at the yearly breakdown of our bus traffic and car traffic. What we do we estimate for you the morning drop-off, the approximate number of cars we think we'll have. And in the first year, in the second year, you'll see some of the middle school as we're building it. The middle schoolers will have to cross over those crosswalks where we'll have safety guards in the mornings to go to the middle school. But by the third year, you will see that we do different times. So middle school will start at a different time. So middle school drop off, both buses and students will start to be dropped off separately at a different time. We believe that the way we're going to do afternoon pickup is very thought out. So we have A, B, C, D groups. That dramatically reduces the number of cars coming at a certain time. We'll be doing that between 3 and 3:45. So if you look at what we presented to you, that should drop cars to no more than 42 cars in our second year. And then if you keep looking through, goes to 47, and then 53 cars, and then I'll just jump to the end number, which is by the last year, we're looking at about approximately 60 cars that have come through for drop-off, but that's because we keep breaking it into smaller groups so that we're not getting all that traffic coming through at the same time. We also have about 8 to 10 staff that will be out there every afternoon in red blazers or orange blazers, and they conduct the traffic. We communicate before school even starts to our parents what group they're in. They have signs in their cars, and our staff know to call those signs as they come through the thing. as they come down the things, both for the middle school and the elementary schools. To date, it has worked incredibly well. What we find is that because of this orderly system, we're finishing much faster than predicted. And we hope the same would be true of our A, B, C, D groups, that we'll move faster as we get used to it. But it is carefully thought out so we don't have congested systems. So, but if you have questions about that, I'd gladly answer them. So.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to add to here is that the traffic flow diagram we're showing is for Great Oaks traffic only at peak times, drop off in the morning, pick up in the afternoon, as Mr. Whipple mentioned. Normal daily traffic, both for Great Oaks and for the public, will enter the site as normal. This is really focusing on those peak travel times or traffic times in the morning and in the afternoon. The other thing to add is that the buses in the afternoon will come in and leave before parents even start. So that's the very first step is the buses going through. The other thing that Mr. Ripplen mentioned is the private easement. There's a private easement coming into the property and continuing to the parking lot area there to the north. And the goal very much is to, of course, maintain that private easement. We believe that traffic heading to those buildings to the north can flow in as normal, even during morning drop off and pickup. Of course, there will be more cars coming through, but everything is designed to circulate out of the property to maintain the ability for cars to come in and flow through. And again, maintaining safety for students and staff in the center portion there where there's the crosswalks and flowing through to the north.
To note, we have traffic cones. So we always leave it to be one lane in the morning. So when they're coming in, it's one single lane. So that leaves the width of 2 car lanes for people to be coming in. And we're aware of that. So that easy access in the morning. In the afternoons, we do take up 2 lanes because we need to try and move that traffic very quickly through. But then we put up traffic cones so that people can still come in on that 3rd lane, so unimpeded. So.
And the other thing too is this really is maintaining the current access that is supposed to be used for the site. Right now, because if the parking lot is open, cars will sometimes veer through the parking lot. Of course, it's not ideal or very safe. The courtyard is there to, as I mentioned, aesthetics to help with students and staff safety and traffic flow as well. Currently, if you were to drive in front of that retail strip mall and continue driving to the north, you would just hit parking. There is not a direct path to those northern 2 properties along that side of the site. So our goal is to maintain that access and to circulate our peak traffic as efficiently as we can and as safely as we can.
So Colin, can I interrupt? Just so that we don't get too far beyond, because it's a statement Paul made, and I'm just a little uncertain I'm trying to vision it in my mind, but you're in the afternoon at peak, you can take 2 lanes.
Yep.
And you said there's a 3rd lane for traffic going out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Going in.
So, and that's my question. What if somebody is coming out from one of those businesses in the back and somebody's coming in? I guess how do they get by each other? Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I think I have seen that. I don't want to say for certain. So we use those 2 lanes, and I've seen people coming out of the parking lot, then coming to get into that lane. We haven't seen a ton of traffic coming in at our times, so there isn't like a large flow, 1 or 2 cars. So I don't know that I can say that I've seen a car stopped. I have seen cars come down the parking lot and go exit out with the other cars that are leaving from Great Oaks Academy. So I don't know how to show it, but.
Are they to use your 2 lanes then?
No, it's a 3rd lane. So if you have these,
Yeah,
you have 2 lanes, right? And the
Right.
cars are going this direction.
Yeah.
And we have cone in the middle, and we're moving those 2 lanes, and we have about 10 staff out there.
Right.
There's another lane over here that's closer to the parking. That's still, you could go back this direction and this direction, north or south. And we don't see a lot of traffic during our pickup time. But what does, they just go down, they go through that, or they come out that way. So the one impediment I have seen briefly is when we're sending our 2 cars by 2 cars by 2 cars.
Yeah.
When they're going down that lane, sometimes they have to pause and then merge into the other 2 cars, into the other cars leaving. Do you know what I'm saying? Out onto Elm. So there is that, but it's never been a huge congestion issue. It just hasn't been that many cars coming.
So I understand. So basically you got 1 lane that's for north and southbound both. on the outside, or?
Yeah, on the
close to
outside, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you've asked it better than I did.
Yeah,
you.
that's right, that's correct.
That's
And
what I
there's-
was gonna get to.
The option to exit out on First as well, because there's no Great Oaks traffic going south that direction.
Okay,
Yeah.
But there is potential for businesses to the north leaving and a car coming into the parking lot to go head on.
Oh,
No, no. So,
Without one pulling over.
no, so they could flow into the outbound traffic.
So if you look at the line, try to
Yeah.
point to it, there's a blue line here and a blue line here.
Yeah.
Those two lines, blue lines indicate the easement. So that's a 20-foot easement, which allows for side-by-side traffic. The yellow that you see in that image is to indicate buses and or cars, depending on how that is. So that's how you start to see the 3 lanes. You have one dedicated lane to the school, then you have the other 2 lanes. In the event of pickup, where Paul has indicated that you're gonna use 2 lanes, he's got 4 pickup times to go through in 45 minutes. So you have the open northbound inbound lane, which is completely wide open and free for traffic flow for those other businesses. If they're going out, they might have to wait as much as 5 or 10 minutes at the max, based on the number of vehicles in the sequence, in order to avoid going into ongoing traffic. Or they can take the First Avenue exit, which I believe part of the requirement is to open that up as an access point, basically an additional easement, the encroachment request that's in there. So we're essentially setting up 2 ways for those businesses to come in and out, based on the staff's recommendation requirement. So you would have an easy flow on the outbound, as Cullen indicated, because the only traffic on First is northbound or incoming traffic. So if you're leaving the buildings on the north side, you'd be able to travel south on First and avoid the school traffic itself.
my concern was for your students and for our residents, your students from being out there with vehicles going by them, and for our residents, if they happen to meet at the same time, one going north, one going south. That was my only concern. I couldn't picture it in my mind.
Yeah, definitely want to
Sounded like
avoid
Phil
that.
had a similar concern.
No, I
question.
understand. That's why we have 10 staff out there
Okay,
to keep.
that's fine. I don't mean to beat it to death.
No, I
I
understand.
didn't quite understand it.
Okay, no problem.
I think the last thing just to mention, as Mr. Whippler said as well, that we did do a full new updated traffic study for full K-12 enrollment with 840 students. I don't know that it's really worth it to go through that exhaustively, but he did look at it year by year and looking at max enrollment year by year and looking at our final enrollment of 840 students and looking at the traffic, especially at those intersections. As what Mr. Whippler mentioned, as a condition, there is the right turn lanes. The traffic study did indicate a right turn lane being needed onto the property. I think by 2028, city is looking for that earlier, understood. So I believe that's, anything else you wanted to add?
I'm open to questions.
Yeah.
Colin, can I just clarify something?
Yes.
The way it sounded to you, you said a turn lane, in the staff recommendation, it's 2.
Yeah,
Yep,
Okay.
we saw that. Yep, the traffic study said 1. City staff is putting a condition for 2. Understood.
Okay. Just
Yep,
didn't know if you.
we're understanding.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
very good. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, if you'd stay available, we'd appreciate it. There may be
Sure.
questions either from our residents or from the commission
Okay.
at a future, so if you'd stay around.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Nice presentation. This is a public hearing. If you have any comments or questions, we ask you, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. This is a public hearing. Does anybody want to volunteer to go first? Yes, sir.
David Marsh, 204 First Street, live right behind the school. First
Good
and
evening, Mr.
foremost, I'm a
Marsh. How are
builder,
you?
contractor. I'm good.
Good.
The lot's not big enough to have 840 students on it. I'll just contradict a few things. Paul's done a great job. I want to applaud him for limiting the number of cars that come through. But quite honestly, the majority of the parents park on the backside waiting for their kids. Nobody goes through that center easement to the post office because they all go down First. We have the post office cars all going down First Street. 90% of their residents, because I sit out there in the morning, or the students' parents come from the west turn left, they're all the way across the bridge at Rambling River, trying to turn left with westbound traffic going on Elm Street. They come around and then they turn and go west again. So now we've got a double bottleneck. So to have 2 right turn lanes there isn't gonna do any good because very few parents come from the east. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep, I see what you're saying.
Secondly, now that they have the speed bumps in place, nobody goes to the post office in front of their school. They might veer by Wang's and drive around it, but they go down First Street now, which is fine. It's a public road. It is what it is. But if we go to 840 students, there's an average of between 75 and 90 cars every day that go down First to drop off. Some use their turn lane or go through their little chute like they're supposed to. Others don't. They just cruise right down the road. And this space, First Street was never designed for this traffic flow. And if most of the traffic's coming from the west, and then they're leaving to go to the west, what are 2 right turn lanes gonna do? And what are you gonna do with Harms's building if you were to grant them that? How are they gonna put a turn lane next to Harms's building unless they buy the building and demolish it? Because there's not space there. There's a sidewalk, there's a fire hydrant, there's public utility. It just won't fit. I think the schools have been a great addition to the town. I really do. But to add all of this it's not serving a purpose, and you're putting, it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. It's just not going to fit. The conduciveness, I appreciate the green space. I made the proposal last time you guys approved the first one. Have them put turn lanes in at Elm Street and their access, and have them do that same traffic flow they're going to do for the middle school, for the elementary school, but you guys wouldn't. You went with, nope, they can come in on First Street. Well, I've told you, Dirk, come on over. Have a cup, all you guys, come have a cup of coffee with me when school's in session or when they're getting out. We'll sit on my porch. I'll even buy you a beer if you want.
I've been by your place several times, Mr. Marsh, you know that. So.
And Paul's done a great job with his parents. But when they're in a hurry, if I was to go driving down his parents' road in a hurry, late for something, my house, that street's only 4 houses long. 4 houses. We ran into some situations because our city only plows 8 feet from the curb on First Street. So I tried to help Paul. I went over with my skid. I pushed the snow so his parents weren't sitting in the middle of the road. Then his plow company went and dug the snow out in about 4 tons of rock and dumped it in front of my driveway this winter and all over my grass. I addressed it with them. They pushed snow into the cul-de-sac. They kept burying the fire hydrant at the end of the cul-de-sac. I addressed it with them. They stopped doing it after I dug it out 15 times. And granted, it was a hellacious winter. But where are you going to put all the snow in that parking lot based on already what we lived through this year? Now, we probably won't have another winter like that, but there's just not space there. Where are they going to put it? And what are I go back to the 2 right turn lanes. It's just not conducive. And 840, now what happens to First Street when those high school kids start driving? Right? Bad enough with elementary parents when they're late. When they're not late, they're good. And I don't mind them parked on the road. It's a public road. It's not a big deal. And they're very friendly. They're very nice. But it's just too much traffic. It's going to take my property value and depreciate it substantially. And that's not fair to me. And I know these guys want to build a bigger school, and I appreciate that. I'm not here to argue against that fact. I'm just saying the traffic flow doesn't work. Have their parents come from the east, go up on 185th, come down 3, put a right turn lane in like they want, move the green space to the end of their new gymnasium, and have middle school, high school, elementary school drop off, and then make them go to the west as they turn out of there. Much easier solution. Now you have 1 turn lane, not 2. The green space is between the 2 commercial buildings that are to the north, and we alleviate a ton of traffic down First Street. And you get your turn lane. Try to turn in there when school's in. You just can't do it because they all come from the west. Vast majority, not all. Okay. So that's my 2 cents. I don't want to not stop. I'm not trying to stop their school. I'm just trying to, use common sense because that's what I do in my life and my business. And this doesn't work. And it's pretty evident it's not going to work. And if you don't believe me, wait till school's in session and come take a look. It just won't. Because nobody drives, even the post office people don't drive past their school during the day. They all go to First. And then you have all those parents. And then everybody comes back out and they turn right and go west. So.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Please consider it.
Tony, I do have a question for you, because I remember when you referred to as Doc Harm's building was put there. Do you know how far setback they are?
I don't off the top of my head.
Okay.
Predates me.
I happen to remember it, and I I don't know if there was if they got a little closer, then maybe then was allowed, but something to check into in the future, I guess, you know.
Yeah,
not
I
tonight,
do know it doesn't go directly up to the property line.
Doesn't it? Okay, maybe
There's a
building.
couple of feet of grass on the north end of the sidewalk, but I don't know that there's a
Okay.
whole lot.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Anybody else for the public hearing? Sure, go ahead.
I want to know that for our good neighbor, I don't know where you went, but
He's back there.
I heard you. I take personal responsibility that our A, B, C, D group show up at the appropriate time and that they don't show up early and park on that street. And I also take personal responsibility that all our parents should use that lane that goes up by our school and then down around. Because I understand that that is a nuisance to you, and you've shared that with me. And I will tell you that I won't give you a guarantee, but I'll do my utmost best to make sure our parents in A, B, C, D group do not show up early and park on that street, but they show up at the appropriate time, and then they come through on our drive and over to the west. That will be highly stressed. It was highly stressed this year. As winter came, to be quite honest, I lost some of my courage to be out there every day directing traffic and maybe got busy, but we will do what's necessary with somebody in back to direct our traffic appropriately through that lane every single day, every single afternoon, and make sure that nobody arrives early and parks on their street, because I understand that is a nuisance.
Mr. Marsh and Mr. Richardson, the Richardsons, they've been good neighbors of that area, and they've come to our meetings, and they're not afraid to bring good ideas to us, and I appreciate it, Dave, and the Richardsons. I appreciate you guys attending all our meetings. So, somebody else had a comment or questions for the public hearing? Yes, sir. Would you please come up, Mr. Richardson?
Bob Richardson, 35 Elm Street. That boulevard is like 10 feet wide of grass, roughly 5-foot sidewalk. And then Dr. Harms, or it's counseling center now, it's probably 6 foot off. We just looked at it. Have you approached the county? Would they allow you to build the developer would have to pay the county to build the road to their specs. And all those utilities would have to be moved. You would probably have to put a retaining wall with a sidewalk above. Then you need your ADA ramps down to both corners. The county doesn't have any right-hand turn lanes from Highway 3 to Aiken Road on that road. That's what that center, there's no right-hand turn lanes. When we come into our driveway, I have to signal once you cross First Street. We live in the second house pass. I almost get run over every night or every afternoon. And to alleviate, if you're going to build the right-hand turn lanes, most of the parents are coming from the west. They could go down Denmark, is a county road, down to Ash, down to Third to the stoplight, coming from the east, like Dave was saying, and exit. That center turn lane is tied up. There has been, about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 cars were waiting to turn left to down First Street. One of the Marshall, or the Mid-County buses, was fourth in line. He was impatient, he was empty. He swung out into the driving lane and then swung in front of the 3 cars, and it was a close call. And I called to the bus garage, and they talked to their bus drivers. They were warned. They were going to be 1 minute late, but they were empty. 3 cars were waiting patiently. He swung out and then jackknifed left in front of him. If that bus would have been in an accident, even empty, that intersection would have been shut down. Commercial vehicle inspector would have been there. It was close. We were out in the front yard. So I called and their safety officer talked to the 3 drivers and said, ease up. If you're a minute late picking up students, that's no big deal. But that center turn lane is tied up even in the afternoons. In the mornings, they're tied up to Rambling River Park. Like staging there. And that area, I mean, when there's fire calls and police calls, I mean, today the sheriff went by there, school's out, but they take that center lane, that's where they have to go. Traffic goes to the right. If that happens during school hours, or it's gonna be a disaster. I mean, the police slow down, but, I mean, the sheriff's goes by there today kicking up dust. I mean, they're doing 70. I mean, they have to go, but,
Yeah, we gotta drive
if
careful, too.
they could go down Denmark, over Dash, down Third and coming from the east, if the school proposal goes through, but if they build those turn lanes, you cannot push them out 2 years. You have to mandate it like for next fall, this fall, because we'll be dealing with this for 2 years. And then say, I mean, it has to be a mandate, I mean, and that little cheater road from the post office to First Street was built for Fleetchie Hardware.
Yeah, I remember.
And that should have a center turn, that should have a center marking on, because people think that's one way. The post office trucks come in, you know, up until 9 o'clock at night, and they're in there 6 in the morning. But that road belongs to Wellington property, so that should be, once you get onto their property, it should be posted speed limit and maybe a center line there for, even if the school stays or doesn't stay. Because people come out of that post office and they start rounding onto the cul-de-sac, and they're not making a square corner, they're making like a 70, 120 degree angle or something. They're not making a square corner onto the round, or to the cul-de-sac, so. And like Dave Marsh was saying, the traffic is there is horrendous. I mean, even after hours, I mean, we got the dance studio and stuff. Is there a way to get rid of that easement in front of the school property and make that all school property? And then have the post office and the dance studio go down First Street? Because those speed bumps are there for a reason to slow traffic down, but it's diverting. Right now, they're going to the empty parking lot, like back by Wang's, but if you build a school there, everybody's going to come down First Street. Because those speed bumps are like 14 inches tall. I mean, they're there for a reason, but the general traffic is not going to the post office. They're going, I mean, before they zoomed through there when the store was empty for 2 years, but that's all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Ms. Cullen.
Just wanted to address 2 quick things that came up there.
Okay.
So high school traffic, I meant to mention that. So high school, we'll have a strict cap on the number of high schoolers allowed to drive to the site, and their parking would be to the north. And just wanted to mention that we were going to put a very strict cap to keep that to a minimum. And that's something that we'll test. We won't have high school drivers for a few years, so it's something we'll be able to plan for and make sure that we keep very much under control. The other thing, the speed bumps, understand, we had to put those in for a reason from a safety standpoint for this year. Part of the reason for that, again, is it's right in front of the elementary school, but the addition of the courtyard and the crosswalks will give us a chance to reevaluate the need for those speed bumps, or even the height, looking at maybe reducing them or removing some of them. The goal there was to just make sure that the traffic was slow immediately in front of the school, but the addition of the courtyard and crossing walk should really help with that. And so need for the speed bumps or their height is something we'll look at. So just wanted to clarify those 2 things.
What I took out of Mr. Marsh and Mr. Richardson's comments, and I direct this at Great Oaks, is one of education to your parents, about maybe their traffic flows. And the other one that they've always commented on is safety. Safety for our residents, for traffic there. I mean, they both have lived there for a lot of years. But they watch it, and it's a busy road. We all know that, so,
I'll be very brief. I heard Bob, right?
Mr. Richardson, yeah.
And
Dave,
if,
Mr. Marsh?
yeah, if we need to redirect our parents in a different way, to create patterns that are more respectful to the neighborhood, we'll do that. I do understand what it would be like to have a house and have all those cars coming, so I will tell you that I will work keenly with our parents to understand that this is a neighborhood and they deserve their privacy and respect too. So, to answer your question.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh?
Actually, I was directed to Paul. More than you guys.
You always do
Can I go up to
anyway.
this? Can I go up here?
You can, absolutely.
Perfect. As I talked about earlier, if you want to put a secondary access right here, instead of last 2 Aprils or an April ago, put a right turn lane here, move that up to here. In, out. Parents come in from the east, you make a horseshoe, you could even put your courtyard in the middle school, high school, elementary, and they all transfer just like this with your turn lane, because you're not getting the turn lane there. Why would the traffic flow work that way? Eliminate this, leave this for these two facilities, right? And just, it's your property. I know you still have to have this easement here, but if you have this come up and through, people, you can still have a turn lane to go back in there for the secondary access per the two retail facilities there. But how come the traffic flow can't go that way? If you're gonna put a turn lane here, you're gonna put a turn lane here, I'm saving you money, you're only gonna have to put one turn lane in. And you're moving the green space up to the top, and you can have the courtyard that way.
Yep, so from our understanding from the county is that they don't want an addition of a second entrance.
But if you already,
Close
if
to the-
it's required for you to put 2 turn lanes in, why wouldn't you just propose to the county to put the 1 in and eliminate First Street? Because First Street's gonna do you no good, because 90% of your traffic comes from the west.
Yeah, what we've heard from them is that they don't want a second entrance that close to the railroad crossing, a second entry into the property.
I'm assuming.
But you can build a building that close to the railroad?
I'm assuming if you
building's
put
there.
the right turn lane in there, the second one, that the fear is traffic will back up and eventually stop on the railroad.
Right.
That would be,
But the second right turn lane wouldn't do you any good in front of Harm's building, because nobody goes that way. I would love to see your traffic study if I could, because it just
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's in there. Yep, it's in there. Yeah, the right turn lanes are gonna help alleviate backups on Elm
How's that?
because they're coming into the right turn lane. They're not stacking on Elm.
Nobody comes from the east. I've explained that to you. I sit in my front porch and watch your parents come and go, no disrespect. 80, I bet you if you look at address, if you look at your parents' address, 80% of your parents come from the west. They don't come from the east. So there isn't a reason to put a right turn lane in either spot, because you're not alleviating anything. I'm just saying if you change the traffic flow, like Paul said, you have your parents all come from the east, you put a turn lane in, even if you don't put it close to the railroad, you keep your green space to the south, and you make that turn lane there, and then they just loop in, put your turn lane right here, not back here. They come in, they go like this, and they walk right back out and go back to the west.
Let me say this, the clarity we want with the planning commission is to show you what we have. We don't want to be wishy-washy with this evening.
Right.
But I also want to say to you that if there's different ways we can do things allowed by the county that makes sense for better traffic flow or for a better neighborhood, we will look at those, absolutely, and I'm not just saying that, we would do
Well, I
that.
appreciate it, thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, Dave. Other comments or questions? Seeing none, we're going to bring it back to the commission table. So if you're thinking of something, we'd appreciate you do it now rather than after, we're done. So if there's anybody that's interested. All right, seeing none, Commissioner Winchell.
yeah, Tony, is there anybody here from the company of this traffic study, representative?
I don't believe so.
All right. Couple questions. How many students in high school do you plan to have? Just 10 through 12?
9 through 12, 2 classes of each would be a total of 8.
How many students, 10 through 12?
Yeah, I'm looking 10 through 12.
Yep. 144.
144. Okay. So how are you going to limit the number of permits you would provide to students?
We would just put a cap on it. We would put a cap on it, so I don't know if that's in here or not, but we would be restricted to a certain number.
Whether they have a license or not, they won't be permitted to drive to the school unless they have a sticker on their car that says Great Oaks Academy parking permit, driving permit for a high schooler. That's it. If they do show up in a car without our permission, we'll ask them to return home.
There's
So-
nothing that says they couldn't park further to the north than by the post office, I guess.
No, we would strictly prohibit students that we do not give a driving permit to will come on the bus or be dropped off by parents, and that's it.
Okay.
That's the rule they need to abide by to be at the school.
And maximum number of parking spaces too available, so that's another way. Those will be designated.
In Tony's report, it talked about 160 spaces total with the build-out that's there.
Yep.
And so when you subtract 78 of those for staff, or whatever that number was roughly, that leaves you about 80 left for.
83, that's why I'm inquiring on the numbers. It leaves you 83 spots.
It'll
and
be
if you-
capped by the parking.
and if you have
And it'll be
140.
a lower number than that.
I'm very sure we can follow that rule with our students, because it would be one infraction, and we'd say, don't let that happen again. So,
And do you know if this traffic study includes it probably doesn't, but include the number of potential employees, extra employees you're gonna have?
It
based
does.
on-
it does include that.
Yeah. They watched the traffic for 2 days as well to get a representative sample of normal everyday traffic in addition to ours.
And I'm curious, with the traffic study, did they physically watch, or were they out there monitoring it with the machines in the road? Or like, what kind of system did they use, or how many days were they out there? Was it 1 day, 2 days, a week?
They had cameras on site for 2 days, so they were strategic locations that monitored traffic coming into the site, where that traffic was going, and then they were recording by the times. So, they had the actual counts, based on the recordings of the traffic.
And have you guys discussed this with the fire department? I know I asked previously, but this fire lane that's potentially would need to go in the back.
We haven't had that discussion yet, just based on building code and expectations of distance. That's why that pathway is shown. They may require it to be wider, they may have other requirements to it, that it would be all part of the design process and getting it through planning and zoning and that type of thing.
And that's what I'm just trying to get at, is because I feel like it's probably gonna end up needing to be bigger and then it's gonna push your building out a little more to the
Yeah,
west.
right now it's shown as a 20-foot, so it's the it's a good width. The other thing to note that hasn't been discussed, and I think it was in the actual submission, but as Paul has indicated to me, as we've been talking about the traffic flow, the cars per student quota, or whatever, however you want to say that, that actually goes down, that ratio goes down, because their busing becomes more efficient, so then more students can ride the bus. And then as you look at the number of students being K through 12, you'll see parents dropping off multiple students instead of single students. So those two factors then reduce the ratio of cars per student. So you're not doubling the number of vehicles when you double the number of students.
And with the high school, you're gonna send the cars north on First and then into the parking lot, or are they gonna be able to come through the main site access, or what's the plan?
Yeah, they could come through the main site access and have a designated parking next to the high school.
Yeah, and I agree with Mr. Marsh. I don't think the right turn lanes are truly gonna do us any good. I would agree that I think most of your traffic does come from the west, just from, the community of people I talked at the open session here the last time. And I certainly do have concerns about the way the traffic flows. I don't agree with parking on the street behind your school to get into the school. I get it, it's a street, you can park there. But I also don't like the in-out situation. Having 2 lanes and then 1 lane for technically north or southbound coming in or out of the school. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the statistics and the traffic study, and then looking at this to make it
When I was out there this fall and into winter, I monitored that street, and I walked up and down, and if there are cars that came in that were our cars and they parked, you know, just as you come in, I would go to them and say, you have to go. You can't park here. You have to go around. You have to wait till your time to come in, and then you have to go through. And on that drive, I did that multiple times till people got the message, there's to be no parking on that street. Because I understand Mr. Marsh's concern about having people park there. And next year, and every year thereafter, when we use that street, I'll commit to 2 staff, making sure that vehicles are coming in at the proper time, not stopping, going through our drive and around. I will commit those 2 staff to that every afternoon, so that we never have parking on that street. And with the ABCD group, we will never come close to exceeding what we already have coming in because of the way we're breaking it up. So we have an AB group, now we're going to go to ABCD. Also, we start to dramatically decrease our car drop-off with the more buses we can afford to have. As our years increase, we get more buses, and we're going to very much push parents to use buses. We will push that hard, saying given the traffic flow of our school, given where we're at, we highly recommend that you use the buses that we're providing for you. And then breaking it into the ABCD should dramatically decrease the number coming through that time. And then the committed staff to being back there. And I promise you, I will have that staff saying to parents, no, you may not park here, you gotta leave, which is what I did. So.
Is there anything that's preventing you from using the buses you have now to just do drop off with kids and pickup versus having parents drop kids off?
We only had a limited number of buses, you know, so the routes were limited because our finances were limited. This year is the first year that we don't have to share routes with Farmington District. We're able to purchase our own routes, which is a unique situation, meaning we can develop our routes and pick up more families based on our financial ability to do so. And every year that goes up with our enrollment, we can afford more buses and our more routes. Thus, we can afford to pick up more people in larger areas. So we're hoping to move into Lakeville by next year and then move into other areas. As we afford more buses, we get more pickup area. So that's generally what's inhibited us is the cost. So.
Right, so starting this fall, we'll have.
Starting this fall, we'll have more buses, and then every year after, we'll have more buses. And so that means our routes go further out into other communities.
Can I throw something out, Paul?
Sure.
I know you have your flights. It's still not just parking in front of my house. It's the amount of traffic that's on First Street. You try to take a right or a left off First when your cars are coming and going.
Yep.
And then even when they drop off, right, or they pick up,
Yeah.
and they come around the front of the school, if you try to go east off First Street at 2:45, 3 o'clock, 3:15, you can't. The same thing if you try to, if you're trying to come back, if say I leave early and I go to Lakeville for something, and I'm trying to come back at 7:35 to turn left on First Street to get to my house, I'm on the other side, I'm damn near to Aiken Road, sitting in the middle turn lane because parents are lined up. And I know you're doing your best. My big concern is the traffic on First Street. Please change your traffic flow. That's what I'm asking. Because if you do your flights, the right turn lane in your green space to myself will suffice the same thing as going to flights on First Street. The 3 flights or the 4 flights, if they come at separate times, the cars will never be stacked up the railroad tracks if they come from the east.
Mr. Marsh, I will tell you this. We want to be a sustaining, good neighbor, so if that means changing our routes, then I'll work to do just
I
that.
would appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. Because like I said, I'm not opposed to your school. I'm just opposed to the traffic because they can't get to my house.
No, we understand that, and I understand that. Yep.
I mean, I plowed your road.
You did. I appreciate that very much.
Anything else, Phil?
No, and I guess just a concern, you know, in this traffic study that was done, you know, you don't have it in front of you, but, you know, there are areas where it's unstable operation, you know, based on the traffic flow in, you know, in the K through 12 when it gets to that point.
You mean like when we're getting to 28, 27, 28, 28, 29, when you start
Yes.
showing a D
Yes.
rating?
There you're showing an E.
Even an E rating at one point, right? I think that's in 28, 29. I read it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah. C, E, and Ds.
He believed, the traffic study believed with the right turn lanes, it would return to a C. I get what you're saying, Phil, that you don't believe the right turn lanes will be that effective, particularly because the traffic coming out of the west.
Yeah.
So I understand that, but we're hoping that the traffic study has taken into consideration that, and that there is some accuracy that it would provide some of the decongestion that would take us out of an ED and put us back to a C. But
And two clarifying points on that. So the traffic engineer, when he was saying it's a D or an E, with the addition of a right turn lane, he's saying it's going to a C. And his recommendation was to have right turn lane by 2028. We would have it much sooner than that. So we should never be in that range of congestion. And the other thing too is that he was not taking into account the staggered pickup times, A, B, C, D. He was not taking that into account. So what you're seeing in that traffic study is sort of worst case scenario. And again, without the right turn lane. So when we add that back in within 2 years, those congestion ratings would go down for sure.
And I guess with the traffic study, it doesn't really give us any other options besides the 2 right turn lanes to get it to a C.
I think our biggest concern here, Phil, and I'm hearing both from Mr. Marsh and yourself and many other concerned people, is that the number of cars that you see in the A, B, C, D group could cause a sustained congestion once we get to that K through 12. I can commit to this, that I will work diligently over these next couple of years to bring us to be more of a busing school and to do everything I can to decrease parent drop-off and say we got to utilize our buses given our unique urban setting. This is something we're going to have to utilize. I get the wonderful privilege and ease of picking up students. I can't promise what I can reduce it to, but I will make a strong effort to make us more of a busing school. So, for what that's worth.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm just
Yeah.
looking at the overall
No, I hear
scheme
you.
of it for safety for everybody, the citizens,
Yep.
the students,
Yep.
people just driving down 50
understand.
and Elm, you know. That's it for now.
All right, thanks, Phil. Commissioner Leto.
Yeah, I guess for me, as far as Tony, do you know what the county would require for those turn lanes? Is there any preliminary thought as to what?
There hasn't been any design to those as of yet. no.
Okay, because it would be, I mean, saying that's county approval, I was just wondering if there's any preliminary notice of whether or not, I mean, because I would hate for 2 years from now this to completely blow up because the county says
The
absolutely not or
county,
whatever.
the county has indicated that they would at least like a minimum one at that private access.
Okay,
So,
So
but
at the-
nothing's
at
been
the back.
designed.
okay.
But they would have to get plans approved and things like that from the county before they actually start that construction of that turn, those turn lanes.
And then I guess in response to Mr. Marsh's question about the courtyard, moving that courtyard, I'm guessing the courtyard's located where it is because it looks really central to all 3 buildings. Is that something you would consider moving that courtyard farther to increase that traffic? So you don't stop right there, as Mr. Marsh said, you go all the way up. Correct. Yeah. Is there any consideration, or is that something you would consider?
Yes, we would.
Okay.
Well, and I think, again, part of the reason also for it being positioned there is to connect the 2 buildings at their front door.
Right, that's why I was thinking
Yeah,
it was there,
where-
because that's what
for
it looks like.
crossing.
If we went
Yeah.
to here, what I would have to do is move another safety here. We have a door here. Might have to make that door larger if possible, so
Okay.
that I'm gaining entrance. That's going to, those are those 3 classrooms we're talking about that right now it's not a sufficient entry for a large volume as our front is. That doesn't mean people can walk down that sidewalk. We already have kids dropped here and walking down that sidewalk. It is something we would look to, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks, that's all I have.
Anything else, Leon?
Nope, that's
Commis-
it, thank you.
Commissioner McAbey.
Yes, I share some of the concerns that they've already brought up about the right turn lanes and the west traffic, so I don't need to get into that anymore. But the other thing to consider also, in my opinion, is that, there is vacant retail space that's not being used back there that might, someday be filled and increase the traffic also. And plus the addition of the apartment building that's going to go in pretty much across the street from that. I have a lot of concern with the traffic flow in general with this plan and this lot. I appreciate the steps you have taken from the April meeting. I think it's a better plan. But in addition, at least for me, it's not so much a question but a comment. But those conditional use permits are, they're kind of subjective to how you interpret them and being on a commission. And for me, part of our comprehensive plan is, it says things like, ensure adequate developable areas that allow opportunities for growth of employment, retail, services, balance of residential, commercial, employment, and public land. I was a supporter of putting the school in the old grocery store and potentially building off, to the northwest of that. But to me, this plan and taking over the rest of that lot is, it's, in my opinion, it's not, doesn't fall in line with our comprehensive plan. That's my opinion. And also, I do have a lot of concern about the traffic, particularly with the addition of things that are going in the downtown area too.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I got-
I let her go ahead of me, and she said a lot was what I was going to say, but we spent a lot of time with Great Oaks, and I appreciate Mr. McGlynn, Mr. O'Neill, that you guys have done a lot of work for your parents, for your students, for your school. It's a great school. We found that out from the parents and the students that were here over the last, 6 months, and I'm going to be briefer tonight than I was last time, because you really addressed a lot of my concerns that I had, but in January 2022, this commission approved a CUP for a kind of a quaint, small, self-contained elementary school in a building that was empty, as Rebecca had said, and that needed to be updated and refurbished. 13 months later, you came back with a middle and high school. And I had a lot of concerns, like I said, at the last few meetings, but you've addressed that for me. But this is still a difficult decision for the commission. As you can see, not everybody was one way or the other. So when I get a difficult topic like this, I kind of go to our in-house experts, and that's our city staff. I look for their thoughts and their knowledge. And so, Tony, I have some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
And really, it's getting to my knowledge, because you speak with them daily, but has the city engineering staff and the city engineer reviewed the traffic study and the layout of the applicant's site plan?
They have.
Did they find any issue with either the traffic study or the plan design other than the noted contingencies?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Has the economic development staff and the economic development director reviewed the layout of this site plan?
They have.
Did they find any issue with the applicant's plan? As the city's planning manager, you have reviewed and recommended approval of the applicant's site plan and the amendment to the conditional use permit with contingencies. So you have no further issues with this application?
Outside of them going with the conditions that
With the
I had placed
conditions.
on it, correct.
Okay. So in my opinion, given that our city staff has no significant issues with the applicant's plan and the amended CUP, I find it difficult to deny it. So given that, Commission, we've got some decisions in front of us, and I'm going to try to simplify it, because Mr. McGlynn and others, Mr. Wellington, there was some confusion at our January 2022 meeting about what I'll refer to as the at-bat building. So with the Commission's permission, I'd like to separate that as a motion, and then we will address the full amended CUP. Is that acceptable to the commission?
That's fine.
Is that acceptable to staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with that, then I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second,
Motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Roddy,
Yes.
Lado,
yes.
McBee,
Yes.
Winchell.
Yes.
Okay. So now, as I mentioned, we've got some decisions to make. The first one, and I want to get this out first, is the at-bat, because there was some confusion. I think the applicant thought that the at-bat was included in the January 2022, and it's not. I mean, our staff has explained to them, and they fully understand that. But that I want to try to address now for lack of confusion. So what I'd be looking for, and first of all, Mr. McGlynn, will you please go up to the mic? As the applicant, staff has listed 6 contingencies. Do you agree with those 6 contingencies, and will you support those 6 contingencies?
Yes, I will.
Okay, and I'm going to take you for your word that you will work to educate parents, to improve traffic flows. You've heard from our residents that have been there, and, Mr. Richardson, Mr. Marsh, they've been here, and they've been good citizens, good residents of this community. And so I trust what they say. So I'm going to take your word for it that you're going to work, do everything possible that you can to try to rectify some of those issues?
I will.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to get you on record about the contingencies. All right. So in front of the commission then, I'd first like a motion to either deny or to accept the amended CUP for what we refer to as the at-bat with the 6 contingencies. Is that clear?
So the 6 contingencies go, well, both?
It will.
Okay.
That's what my plans are. Staff, do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion for the approval of the at-bat.
That's for the amended CUP for the at-bat
A second.
with the 6 contingencies. We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Call the roll, please.
Lado,
Yes.
McAbey,
Yes.
Winchell,
Yes.
Roddy.
Yes, so that part is done. Okay, now in front of the commission then is a amended CUP as shown tonight with the site plan, traffic flow, with the 6 contingencies. Is there a motion?
Can I make a motion, but with an amended part of it?
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, but item number 4, I'd like to see some additional work done regarding the courtyard and additional traffic flow. So I don't know the time frame on that, but I just think that that's a sticking point for me, and I'd like to see some additional, perhaps findings of fact or some additional work. The school's indicated they'd be willing to move the courtyard, and I'd like to make that a condition of approval.
Can we clarify? Now, I've heard moving the courtyard, is that, are you talking, number 4, if I'm looking at it
Yeah.
accurately, that would be the turn lanes?
Yep, and also the turn lanes being constructed within 2 years, but also I'd like to to change the traffic flow that's currently there for the middle and high school.
Okay,
So I don't know if that incorporates another number. I'm guessing it would be number 2 as well, because then that would change where the courtyard's located.
We could just add a number 7.
Okay.
okay. Would
That
that be
might be the
acceptable,
easiest.
Mr. Leto?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll add a 7th condition. Mr. McGlynn, do you agree to the 7th condition?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion for approval. Is there a second? I will second that. So the motion in front of the commission is one of approval. A yes is a affirmative to approve it. A no would be to deny it with 7 conditions. Is there any more discussion? Call the roll, please.
McAbey,
No.
Winchell,
No?
Roddy,
Yes.
Lado.
Yes.
All right, with both motions, I would like to have would include that staff prepare findings of fact. For the first ones, it would be findings of fact for the approval. For the second one, it would be findings of fact for the denial. We are a split commission, 2-2. A split commission is not approval. Again, I will remind the applicant that you have 10 days to appeal the commission's decision to our city council. Tony, anything else?
Nothing, sir.
All right. Anything else from the commission on this one? All right. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. For those that are here for another public hearing, our second public hearing is an amendment to a planned unit development. This is for Vita Attiva at South Creek, and the address is 5140 216th Street West. Jared, you're going to take this one.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. That's requested for you tonight is for an amendment to the PUD agreement that we have with Vita Attiva. The applicant is Paul Whiteman, and the request is to allow for 165 square foot, 5.5 foot tall monument sign to be placed in between the amenities building and the stormwater pond. So to recap, the city entered into this PUD agreement back with Vita Attiva in 2021. The PUD agreement outlined certain deviations from zoning requirements such as reduced setbacks, lot sizes, and increased building coverage. Per city code, monument signs cannot exceed 50 square feet in area and 5 feet in height. So this proposed monument sign is 165 square feet in area and 5.5 feet tall. And so this PUD amendment would allow for the monument sign to deviate from the code requirement. So here's the elevations of the sign. So it's 30 feet long, 5.5 feet tall, and it's anchored by 4 wall steel square tubes into the ground. And then there's a color rendering here that looks centered over the amenities building, and this would be facing towards Eaton Avenue. The sign would be uplit from the ground. And so the action requested for you tonight is to recommend the City Council approve the attached resolution amending the PUD agreement to allow for this monument sign. And I believe the applicants are in the house too tonight if you have any questions. I would like to note too that I did receive an email earlier today from a resident at Vita Attiva expressing her disapproval for the placement of the sign due to that this is the patio area for the amenities building would, if you're sitting back there enjoying it, that the sign would be blocking the views from the pond. And that email is attached in your packet.
Thank you, Jared. Would you add that to the public record, please?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Mr. Whiteman, your thoughts?
I will say, first of all, that rendering was not to scale.
All right.
It was much bigger than it really is.
All right.
That one, yeah, it's not that big.
All right,
So it's 3.5 feet tall. It's a stone, I would say, almost looks like a retaining wall of some sort, 30 feet long with a nice stone cap. And then the letters themselves are the actual sign, which are 2.5 feet tall, creating that height. So, and the uplights will obviously be turned off at night as well. They'll be on timers. So as far as the email you received, there is an 8-foot patio around the entire building. So there's plenty of areas to enjoy the scenery, that kind of stuff. The whole goal of this development was to create kind of a resort feel. It's kind of slow going, we're getting there, but this is part of it, along with what we hope to have, a fountain in the pond there. I know we've been working with staff on that for quite some time, and it sounds like we're making some headway there, so that's great. Also, we're gonna do some more landscaping around the pond and that kind of stuff once the landscaping goes in for the amenity building. So this is just part of what we're trying to get to. It's not visible from 50. It's more just as you're entering the development and the feel of the overall development.
all right, this is a public hearing. I know there are some residents from there that are here. I don't know if they want to speak or not. This is a pretty informal group, so if they're interested, please come up to the podium, state your name and address.
I'm Geraldine Jolly. I live at 5093 216th Street, which is directly across the street to the north from that building.
Okay.
This subject of the large sign being placed where it is came up pretty suddenly. The first most of us knew of it was the letter we received from the city about this hearing tonight. And so there was a little bit of a buzz of my neighbors, and all of them were pretty negative about it. I'm not sure that we all understood exactly what was going on, but the questions that were given to me to bring, because not everyone could attend this meeting, was what is the purpose of that sign? And we all have been very impatiently and awaiting for that amenities building to be completed. It was supposed to be completed, so we were told, about the middle of June. But I think we're pretty close to that, and it doesn't look like it's completed. And one of the things we assumed, there was never any talk about the signage or like that. What we were led to believe there would be a sitting area there where we could look at the pond. There's no other benches or anything anywhere else, but in nice weather, the pond is attractive and we get some wildlife and like that once in a while, and it's a good place to gather. We thought that would be like a cabana area, if that's the right word. So I'm expressing those views. We all think it would make more sense if you want to identify where we are by a sign that names us. It would be more appropriate to have it on Eaton Avenue where there's traffic. For those of us who live there, it's not really necessary. But that's the complaints or the concerns that I'm bringing, and there'll be more people moving in as time goes on, because there's a lot of construction going on now. But for right now, the people that I am acquainted with in my 8-plex are not in favor of this, so.
Okay, well, thank you, Jerry.
Okay.
Mr. Whiteman, do you have a time just to go through purpose, timing, and then other things that Jerry brought up?
Well, timing, it will be done when the exterior amenities and landscaping will be done, which will be this summer at some point, summer or late summer. The interior of the building is nearly complete. We've run into several delays in construction, as seems to happen all the time these days, but we will be open here probably in the next few weeks. The reason the sign is there and not out by Eaton is because all of the land out by Eaton is dedicated to the city, so we technically can't put it there because we don't own the land. This we do own, obviously, and is outside of the dedicated portion of the pond that's dedicated to the city. So that's the reason for the location. Everywhere else is all dedicated to the city land, not owned by Vita Attiva.
Maybe I'll ask, because I'm gonna ask it later or not.
Sure.
It's a pretty large sign. I mean, it's even with what it is, it's over 3 times larger than what's allowed. I mean, why so big?
Well, first of all, to me, it's kind of a retaining wall. It's more of a retaining wall feel, and then the letters, if you take the actual square footage of the letters themselves, I think we're probably somewhere, was it 80 square feet is the max?
It was just over.
We're probably somewhere around there with just the letters themselves on top of retaining wall. That's kind of how I look at it. So again, this is a bad rendering to look at because it's way oversized. We're talking about 3 feet of stones sticking out of the ground and 2.5 feet of letters. We could certainly reduce the height. We're just thinking with snow and that kind of stuff, you're not going to see it if the snow's burying it.
Here's my question. Has anybody sat down and talked with the residents that live out there to let them know what's coming? I mean, for them to have to find out through the notice that we provide for a public hearing is kind of a cold notice for a resident to get that's going to affect them personally.
Well, we had always planned to put a monument sign identifying our development. We just didn't know exactly what we were going to do. I guess I assumed most of them knew. I know we've been talking about it for quite some time.
How would they know, I guess? What would
Well,
be
our
the
sales
means?
team was aware of it, and anyone that's buying there should be, being told of it, but apparently that's not the case. So.
I moved into a new development a couple of years ago, and that's what a lot of people say is, you should have found out through the salesperson, and no, they're there to sell.
Yeah,
And,
correct.
and, if it's something negative, they're more than likely not gonna say stuff to potential buyers, just for the reason that it might impact a sale for them.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what my experience has been recently, so.
You
But
should
anyway,
move to Vita Attiva.
yeah, you're right. In hindsight, you were absolutely correct.
I guess I didn't look at it as a negative. I looked at it as
Okay,
a positive.
and
I thought it was
I'm just
more
letting you
of a-
know, if you got Jerry here, and she knows a lot of people, and she, if your residents are saying, wow, this is a negative to me, I don't like it, it's affecting me negatively, gosh, if I were the owner, I'd sit down with the residents and say, okay, let's work together. We need a sign, we want a sign, this is probably the best place to put it, or the only place to put it. Maybe there's others that maybe, as they said, but gosh, to irritate your new property owners, I mean,
I would disagree. I would say not all of them are irritated by it.
well, I don't know, I'm talking to the ones that have been, you know, that I've spoken with here now, so.
Okay.
Anybody else want to talk at public hearing?
I just got a couple questions for Paul.
Oh, sure.
All right, state your
So
name and
where
address,
that
please.
sign is, that's on a hill. Oh, Warren Johnson, 5096, 217th Street.
Okay.
Yes, correct. It is
So how far away from the activity center is it?
There's actually stakes in place now where it's gonna go, and it's probably about 20 feet from the patio.
So it's going down the hill, so when you're sitting on a patio, you're gonna be looking right over the top of it.
Correct, and it is shorter, as I stated, in this, yeah.
All right.
The survey was submitted to Warren's question. You guys should have a survey of where it's staked. That's in the record.
Yep.
Okay, that was my only question, is just
All right,
location.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, because it is a hill.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission table. Commissioner Leto,
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Commissioner McAbey,
I don't have any further questions either.
Commissioner Winchell.
Sure, I'll ask one. Is there any place else on the property to put the sign to try and please everybody? If you can.
We could put floating letters in the pond. That was one thing that actually was brought up. But again, city owned, you know, city maintained pond dedicated to the city.
But at one of at the entrance?
And that's part of the problem. That whole pond area out to Eaton is all dedicated to the city. And then the two corners are 10 feet from the sidewalks. You know, we've got lot and grass and landscaping for the two corner units. There is an outlot on the other corner, but that's where all the electrical boxes and everything are. We could put a small sign there, but you know, it wouldn't really give you that feel. You know, we could certainly reduce the height.
And that's what I was gonna say. I
yeah.
said, you know, at the very least, I would certainly think about reducing the height a
Sure.
little bit.
Yeah.
Just, again, so people, you know, if they are shorter, they're not having to sit up in their chair to look
Right.
over, they could.
Yeah, but it's a couple feet down the hill, and we reduce it another foot.
Yeah.
You know, then I think that would be
Sure.
something that we could do. Sure.
Sounds good.
I'm Brian. I work with Paul at Vita Attiva. Yeah, I mean, obviously alternatives to make it smaller. We have flags on Eaton Ave and County Road 50 that the Petersons, we bought this land from, let us put some flags up. Those are kind of temporary. Obviously, when they sell that land to commercial or they want those flags gone, those will probably be gone.
Yep.
So there's not a lot of great places. Obviously, when we get to phase 3 and we build Pilot Knob, in addition to, you know, the Petersons and everybody chipping in on that Pilot Knob extension down to our phase 3 entrance, we could put a monument sign at some outlot there. But again, we kind of look at this as a positive. We have renderings on our website of the amenity center. We just are doing everything we can. It's been a little slow with phase 1, as some of our residents can attest to. We're just trying to grow this community, increase their value of their property, and fill up the development through 3 phases. We're close to getting phase 2 approved through bank loans. As you can imagine, it's a very difficult time working with banks. We're close to getting phase 2 loans in approval stage and getting phase 2 kicked off with infrastructure moving west. So all we're trying to do with this sign, we're not trying to irritate residents. We take responsibility for not being transparent about what we're trying to do with the sign. All we're trying to do is make it, you know, a nice, as you enter the community on 216th or 217th from Eaton Ave. Okay, this is Vita Attiva. This is amenity center. Wow, this is nice. This is a pond. Maybe we get a fountain. So that's all we're trying to do is make a nice entrance. I mean, it's $30,000 we don't have to spend, but that's coming from us as a developer that we want to put in development to, you know, increase sales, make it obviously acceptable to homeowners, which we obviously need to address, it sounds like. But that's all we're trying to do is, you know, increase momentum with the development and get more residents and build more homes. So I'll just add that.
And I totally understand. I think the sign looks great. I'm just trying to address the concerns that people have and try and kind of figure out a happy medium for everybody.
Right.
And if you can drop it a foot, great. If you can't, it is what it is.
It is a fairly large sign, a large variance. I mean, and I agree with Phil. I've heard nothing but good about your development. I kind of agree. I should have looked closer but you guys were just starting, but that's my issue, not yours, or my wife's, I should say. So now, we're looking at a recommendation to our city council, and, you know, they don't like wishy-washy commissions where we say, you know, we approve a sign, but we don't say how big. And, you know, Phil and you guys have been bantering about size. What are you thinking? I mean,
I would think if you approved it with a foot smaller, maybe it's 6 inches on the stone, 6 inches on the letters, I think that would still be adequate to stay above the snow and still get our point across. And
Okay, Jared, how good's your math? What is that kind of I mean, usually in a report, we say what the variance is gonna be. You know, this is really a modification to a PUD, so it's not a exact variance. So,
And if we,
Tony, can we be a little soft and you guys do the math, or what we should have some kind of numbers, I would think.
We could certainly do the math. If everybody's in agreement that we want to go down, reduce everything a foot,
Yeah.
we can certainly do that math and.
If it goes down to a foot, it's gonna be 135 square feet.
All right. Gets a little closer, guys. Are you okay with that?
yeah,
All right, Jerry, what do you think?
I want to just say one more thing.
Sure.
I know I'm speaking for myself, and there's lots of other residents, but we're not looking for you to have to make it smaller. The problem, I think, is in the communication, that this issue just got dropped on us just a few days ago, and people were coming, trying to figure it out. I did not know that was a retaining wall. And, I mean, if there was information being circulated, I certainly missed that memo. I think it would have been nice to announce it by an email or something, but I don't want to say that you need to make it smaller.
oh, no, that's
It's
fine.
either there or it's not there.
Yeah.
And if it's gonna be there, it can be whatever size you want it to be.
Well, and I understand, I guess that's our fault, we dropped the ball on that, and I didn't think it was a negative for anybody, so we kind of just kept rolling with it, but you're right, we should have communicated, so I apologize.
All right, thanks, Jerry. All right, let's get down to business. Phil, your thoughts, same size or a foot smaller? What do you guys want? Foot smaller?
Yeah.
Foot smaller, all right, so you guys will do the math. So with that, I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, call the roll, please.
Winchell.
Yes.
Roddy.
Yes.
Plato.
Yes.
McAbey.
Yes.
In front of the commission, then, is a recommendation of city council. There's a resolution for PUD agreement for an increased sign area, height for monument sign, as we've been discussing tonight. Is there a motion? Your recommendation to our city council, so is there a favorable motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve based on the 1 foot reduction.
Okay, we have a favorable recommendation to our city council. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any more discussion? Call the roll, please.
Roddy.
Yes.
Plato.
Yes.
McAbey.
Yes.
Winchell.
Yes.
All right. Let me go down to the. All right, we'll move into our last public hearing. This is a amendment to a planned unit development. The applicant is Trinity Care Center. The address is 905 Elm Street. Tony, you'll take this.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Farmington Health Services requesting a third amendment to a planned unit development site plan for their property that's located at 905 Elm Street. The original PUD site plan was approved by City Council back in 2012 and basically contained the following site changes. Construction of additional 10-bed group home for memory care residents, the demolition of the remaining hospital building, and construction of a utilities addition to the existing skilled nursing center, and the construction of 2 senior living apartment buildings that would be on the west side of the property. Since that original approval, there's been 2 separate amendments to this PUD. The first one was in 2016, and contained these following changes. It removed those 2 senior living apartment buildings from the plan. It added a 29-unit nursing home addition near the north end of the site. It did reduce the front yard setback for that addition from 25 feet to 18.5 feet. And it added a 5,997 square foot addition onto the north side of the existing nursing home for office storage and delivery space. And it did show a north-south access road, which would connect 213th Street West south to the entry drive off of Elm Street. This also showed cross access to the Pleachy site, both at the north and south end of the hardware store site. And then the second amendment happened in 2019, or was approved in 2019. This included the removal of that north-south access road, as it was later determined that was not needed for fire protection services. And it included cross-access to the Pleachy site, as that was maintained with the Second Amendment, as a proposed access drive was shown that extends from the southern boundary of the Pleachy site southeast to the Trinity entry drive. Additionally, cross-access again was provided on the north end of the Trinity site off of 213th Street to the parking lot on the north end of the hardware store site. Necessary easements were required to be provided for that cross-access at those locations to ensure that those areas are available for construction of those accesses by the hardware store. The amendment that we are looking at this evening, again, it's the third proposed amendment to this PUD site plan. It includes the removal or demolition of approximately 7,700 square feet of the existing nursing home portion of the facility, mainly in the central portion of the site. And then the construction of 21,127 square foot addition, basically right over the area that gets demoed or removed. The addition will largely consist of additional storage area and additional 20 nursing home units. The addition will also connect into the existing apartment building located towards the northeast side of the site, as well as the group home memory care unit located at the southeast corner of the site as well. This is the existing site plan showing the existing buildings on site. As you can see, the memory care unit, which is this building right here, right now is currently separate from the rest of the buildings. With the proposal as shown here, this is the addition that's proposed, that is highlighted in gray here. Connection will be made to that memory care unit, as well as I mentioned before, to the existing apartment building at the northeast portion of the site. That's the main change that they are looking to achieve with this PUD amendment. This is the overall floor plan showing the additional layout of the proposed nursing units. Building elevations, the building will be a mixture of brick and ephes or stucco, similar to what's out there now. They'll match in. As far as the bulk standards for the site, the current building coverage of the site is at about 20.3%. With the proposed site work, the building coverage will increase to approximately 22.7%. The city's R4 zone, which this is located in, allows for a maximum building coverage of 30%, so it's well below that threshold. Required setbacks are 25 feet for front yard, 10 feet for side and rear yard setbacks. With the location of the addition, it's basically central to the site. Setbacks are not an issue with what they are proposing. A total of 183 off-street parking stalls are provided on this site. That number would exceed the requirements under the city code for a senior care facility, so there's no concern with that. Therefore, the action as requested this evening is the Planning Commission should recommend approval of the attached resolution approving the third amendment to the planned unit development site plan for Trinity Care Center and forward that recommendation on to the city council.
All right, thank you, Tony. Nicely done. Is there a representative of Trinity here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Come on up. What was your name?
My name is Ben Ryan. I am project manager
Hi, Ben.
for St. Francis Health Services.
Okay. You got a nice place out there. I
Thank you.
think it's,
Thank you very much.
well liked and well respected by this community. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Lynn, do you have any comments or questions regarding this?
No, I agree with you that everybody loves Trinity and we're thankful it's in the community.
Yeah, thanks. It's well received.
All right. Let's start with Commissioner McAbey.
No, I don't have any further questions, but I agree. You guys did a really good job out there, and we're happy that you're here.
Thanks.
Commissioner Winchuttle.
I have nothing, and I echo those comments.
Commissioner Leto.
I just want to say it's in my neighborhood. You guys are doing a great job, so I'm really excited to go past it twice every day.
Much
So,
appreciated.
thank you.
I just
Yeah.
had one simple question. They talk about a 21,000 square foot addition, and it largely consists of additional storage area and 20 nursing home units. What's the breakdown of storage versus units? I mean, percentage wise of that 20,000 square feet.
If you were
Is there
actually
that much storage that you're looking at?
Here, let's go back to the,
Is it that little bubble onto the lower
yeah,
part?
I mean, this is basically what's labeled as storage
Okay, that's
right
that
now.
bubble then.
The
All right.
remaining of it's basically your
Okay.
living units.
I just,
Can I elaborate?
yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
So, right now, there are two existing wings up here, and they are from 1969 era. It's the oldest part of the nursing home. The plan is to demolish that, make it more economical, more efficient. And the area within the center is actually, we got nurses station, conference room, bathroom, some employee areas, so on and so forth. The biggest concern that staff has at the facility is we don't, a lot of beds. They come in, come out, and when you're talking about beds, they take up a very large area of square footage. And when you start putting 15 beds and mattresses, and all that type of stuff, at the care center, we require a large footprint. And the best thing we can come up with is combined storage from our memory care unit that would adjoin with a connecting link to our skilled nursing facility. And this would be cold storage space that's just used to kind of take up the bulk of all of those big ticket items.
Good.
So,
Good to hear. So, appreciate it. All right, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So
Motion to
moved.
close.
We have a motion,
Second.
is there a second? Motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Leto,
Yes.
McAbey,
Yes.
Winchuttle,
Yes.
Roddy.
Yes. In front of the commission then is a recommendation to our city council regarding the third amendment to the PUD site plan for Trinity Care. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a favorable recommendation to our city council. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? If not, call the roll, please.
McAbey,
Yes.
Winchuttle,
Yes.
Roddy,
Yes.
Leto.
Yes.
Tony, was there anything else from you?
Nothing, sir.
Jared, anything else from you?
Nope.
Anything else from the commission? If not, I'll remind the commission and our viewers, our next regular meeting is July 11th. And with it, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are officially adjourned. Thank you.